Hello everyone, I welcome you to the new course on simulating fluid flows using Python. First and foremost, thanks to every one of you who have joined me for this wonderful course. Here I would be talking about how we can use Python to write our solvers to solve fluid flow problems. And special thanks to these guys for their generous supports towards this channel. So in this lecture, we'll be talking about CFD, that is usually referred as computational fluid dynamics. We'll talk about what is CFD, why do we need it, and more importantly, how we are going to use it. The second part of this lecture would introduce the ideology of finite differencing method, and we'll be calling them as FDM. Mind you that this course is oriented towards using finite volume methods or FVM. But as you'll see that these finite differencing method, they would lay a very good foundation towards the FVM, and that is why it would be useful to give you a quick overview of the finite differencing method. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So the word CFD stands for computational fluid dynamics. And if I have to be specific about the first word, that is the computational, that refers to one of the pathways in which we can solve the fluid flow equations. And the other options are, it could be experimental fluid dynamics or it could be theoretical fluid dynamics. So in experimental fluid dynamics, we use various kind of experimental techniques. We conduct experiments in order to understand the fluid flow phenomena. Whereas if I have to talk about theoretical fluid dynamics, which is sometimes also called as analytical fluid dynamics, in that we try to mathematically solve the governing equations in order to arrive at a fluid flow solution. Whereas in computational fluid dynamics, we take help of computers and the various numerical techniques in order to simulate a fluid flow. So this would give you an idea of what are the various ways in which we can find the solution of a flow phenomena. The second word in this context is the word fluid. So most of you, I believe, have done the course on fluid mechanics, and there you might have learned that any material that cannot resist an applied shear stress, we call that as a fluid. So all the liquids and all the gases that are typically around you, they could be termed as fluid. So we are not going to dive in very deep into this, but you get the idea. The third word in our definition is dynamics. So remember again from your fluid mechanics class, when we say dynamics, we are interested in both the kinematics parameters such as velocity, acceleration, and we are also interested in the effect that these variables causes, such as the force. It could be the lift force, the drag force, or it could be the pressure forces or the viscous forces. So dynamics allows estimation of all these quantities. So in a nutshell, computational fluid dynamics, it allows estimation of all those flow related phenomena using computers. So now let me give you an idea of why do we need CFD when we have experiments and the theoretical foundations through which we can also solve the fluid flow equations. So talking about the experimentation, so usually in any kind of experimentation, there is some sort of restrictions that allow to get only access to a limited data. So this could be limited in terms of space, that you have access to only certain part of the flow domain, or it could be limited with respect to time, so that you can only access certain time scales. So all the experiments therefore have to make a compromise. I'm not saying that computations are perfect, because there are also certain compromises in computations. But if I have to talk about accessibility to the data, the computations provide a much larger or a much better access to the flow field. And in that sense, a computation would give you much more amount of data as compared to experimentation. Now, if I have to talk about the theoretical part, we know that these fluid flow, they are governed by nonlinear partial differential equations. So even the best mathematicians out here today, they're not able to solve these equations rather than or except for a few very simple cases. And if you think you can do it, there's a $1 million prize money if you can do that, and you can make yourself some money. So using the theoretical methods, we can only go so far. So that is where we have to stop relying on the analytical techniques and go towards the computational methods. The third point that I want to emphasize to advocate the use of CFD is that over the last few decades, we have seen a rather large increase in the computational power. So if I have to tell you from my personal experience, 10 years before, my personal computer had 2 gigabytes of RAM with I think around 500 gigabytes of storage, and today that has increased many times. And that is also true for all the research facilities and university supercomputers, that the amount of computational power that they had, let's say 20 years before, is much more now. And therefore, we are able to solve a lot of complex fluid flow phenomena today than we were able to do it in the last few years. Finally, it wouldn't be incorrect to say that you can do CFD at the comfort of your fingertips. But sometimes when you get in the bugging situation, I know that you might want to pull your hair off, but that is a part of the process. So now we have looked at what is CFD and why do we need it. Let us look at the more practical part, that is, how do we really implement it. So what you see on the screen are the governing equations that govern the two-dimensional incompressible flow. And these equations are basically a manifestation of conservation of mass and momentum. We are going to talk about these equations in much more detail later on, so don't get scared right now. My idea to display these equations here is for you to understand that there are a lot of gradients or the derivatives that are actually appearing in these equations. And when we try to solve them using CFD, the idea lies in the sense that we want to convert these differential equations, the equations that contain derivatives, to algebraic equations so that they can be easily manipulated. So we'll see how do we go about that. But the takeaway from here is that these equations contain a lot of derivatives. Throughout this lecture series, I would be consistently referred to some of the textbooks. The first one being the Introduction to Computational Fluid Dynamics by Versteeg and Malala-Sekra. So this book is excellently written if you really are serious about implementing your CFD simulations. So this book contains a very good guide on how to write those algebraic equations and therefore giving you a feel of how you can implement that. So we would be roughly following this textbook throughout this course, but our implementation strategies might differ. But if you want to understand what is actually going on behind the scenes, this is an excellent book. The second book that I highly recommend is The Numerical Heat Transfer and Fluid Flow by Suhas Patankar. And mind you that he is the guy who invented simple algorithm that is still one of the best and robust techniques to solve the fluid flow. This book, however, not so oriented towards the numerical implementation, but it lays an excellent theoretical framework for your numerical calculations. So this is like a bedtime read for the nerds out there, because this is not written in a mathematical way. This is written more in a physical sense. And finally, because this course is oriented towards Python, so the book by Robert Johansson is excellent guide for implementing scientific computing that we would be ultimately doing in Python. So having that out of the way, let's start to talk about some numerics. Now let us try to look at why there was a need for finite differencing. So remember how we had various derivative terms in the governing equation, and because we wanted to get rid of those derivative terms, finite differencing method is one of the ways in which you can convert those gradients into algebraic equations. We'll actually see how to do that probably in the next lecture, but today I want to give you a brief intro to the finite differencing method. So let us say we have a function f and we know the value of that function at multiple grid points. So we'll talk about what is a grid a little bit later on, but I hope that in this discussion you'll get an idea. So let us say that function f, it looks something like this, and while it looks like a continuous function, it is not really sampled on infinite number of points, and the value of this function, it's usually defined on certain number of finite points, and these finite number of points is roughly what we refer to as grid. So now when we talk about finite differencing, we ask ourselves the question, can we estimate the derivatives of this function using the value of the functions at multiple grid points. So we are trying to map it with the governing equations, that in governing equations we have the derivatives, and let us say if somehow we know the value of the function at multiple points, can we use this information to get those derivatives? So that lies, or that gives you the basic idea of the introduction of finite differencing. So let us say we know the value of this function f at any given point x0. Now the question comes, can we use this information to predict the value of the function at another point that is spaced h apart from x0? So the question that we ask is, can we evaluate f of x0 plus h? A lazy person's approach would be to simply assign the x0 plus h equals to the value at x0. And we call this lazy person approximation as zeroth approximation. So if I represent this on a graph, let us say this blue curve gives the actual function variation, and the 2 points down, they represent x0 and x0 plus h. So the lazy person approach would simply say that this purple curve approximates the f of x at both the points, and it is nothing but a flat line. If I want to be a little more smart, what I can do it, I can also consider the slope of that line. So let us say we define the first derivative that physically represents the slope of the line or the slope of the curve at that particular point, and we can use that information to predict the value of f of x0 plus h. So this approximation includes the first order approximation. So if I want to represent it on the same plot, we can say that this would be a little better approximation to f of x0 plus h, but it may not be enough. So mind you that this gradient is being evaluated at f of x0, or x equals to x0. The next best guess towards this x0 plus h to introduce the second derivatives. And remember, the physical meaning of the second derivative is to give you that curvature. So the first derivative gives you the slope of the line, the second derivative gives you the information of the curvature. So if I include the second derivative into the picture, we may get even a better estimate of x0 plus h, but in all the problems, again, it might not be enough. Therefore, in order to generalize this particular formula, we have something called as a Taylor series, and I hope that you might have come across it in your engineering mathematics class. And the general formulation of Taylor series says that the f of x0 plus h, it can indeed be predicted by the information at the point x0. So we'll need the value of the function, that is f of x0, plus all different derivatives, all the different order of derivatives at the same point x0. That is important here because the right hand side is evaluated at x equals to x0. And similarly, you can have another expression for f of x0 minus h. So let us say the point is lying on the other side. That is also possible. If you simply replace h by minus h in the first equation, you'll get the second equation. So we'll be using a lot of Taylor series in order to derive the derivative conversion formulas for the finite differencing method. But for now, I'll stop here because I want to talk about finite differencing in actually the next lecture, where we would be talking about something that is called as forward differencing method, backward differencing method, and a central differencing method. We'll see about their various characteristics. And finally, we'll take an example that would be based on polynomials to understand the various characteristics of this differencing method. So we'll gradually build up towards the solution of fluid flow, but first we have to understand the very basics that actually goes towards solving this problem. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions regarding this lecture or any kind of feedback that you want to provide. Hit the like button if you think that this content was useful to you, and feel free to provide any kind of feedback. So until the next time, we will talk a little bit more about finite differencing method. Stay safe and take care.